welcome to Talks 9. I hope you are enjoying our sessions, and I also hope that you have subscribed to our channel and spread the word around this new initiative. The Churn is your platform. We are merely trying to curate stuff that you are interested in and you want to have a discussion around it. Today, we'll discuss the India-China border issue. We all know the conversations on social media, on national platforms, and also in the parliament. We know that China has been working on its expansionist policies for quite some time now, and its dream of becoming a global hegemon is something which needs to be interrogated within the policy as well as the political circles. Let me introduce the team that shall be taking us through Talks 9 today. We'll have Siddharth with the updates section. Siddharth works with the India Foundation. He is a senior research fellow. We have Sudarshan, who will take us through the tete-a-tete section. Sudarshan is based out of Chennai, works as a senior research fellow at the India Foundation, and has an expertise on India-China issues. Soumya, a research fellow at the foundation herself, will get us the review section. Over to you, Siddharth.
Thank you, Shubhrashta. In this section, I will try to update the viewers of Talks about the ongoing India-China border standoff and also about the LAC, the line of actual control. In the first week of last month, China moved few hundred soldiers of People's Liberation Army at various locations, mainly in eastern Ladakh sector like the Galwan Valley and the near Pangong Tso. In response, India also moved an equal number of high-altitude warfare troops to these areas, which are actually very close to the line of actual control. So India matched the Chinese PLA deployment in terms of number of troops and in terms of capacity and resources in the eastern Ladakh sector at all the locations that were witnessing simultaneous standoffs between the Indian and the Chinese army. Now, if we go through the official briefings and press releases by the Indian Army and India's Ministry of External Affairs, then it's clear that although there were border standoffs at various locations, but there has been no intrusion in the Indian territory as of now. This was also clearly articulated by India's Defense Minister Shri Rajnath Singh in his various TV interviews, where he clearly mentioned that although there is a standoff at various points on LAC, but there has been no intrusion on Indian territory in the eastern Ladakh sector. Now, the problem comes with a different perception of LAC by both countries because of lack of clear demarcation of LAC at various points. If we try to analyze the reasons behind this standoff, then China's aggressive posturing should be seen as their attempt to change the status quo in the region. While the Chinese say that the troop buildup is China's response to India's border infrastructure project near the LAC, the one important road that now we read and listen in the discussions is the 255-kilometer long Darbuk-Shiok Daulat Beg Oldie Road, also called the DSDBO road. This DSDBO road has been in the making for around 2 decades, but its construction picked up speed post Doklam 2017, when India also started ramping up the speed of its border infrastructure. And now this road is expected to be completed by this year at the earliest. Chinese demanded the Indian side to stop the construction activities close to the LAC. But India has also time and again made it absolutely clear that all road infrastructures are being built within the Indian territory. Now, to resolve the standoff on LAC, on 5th of June this month, the foreign ministry officials of both countries, Joint Secretary of East Asia Division in the India's Ministry of External Affairs and Director General from Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, interacted with each other via video conferencing, followed by an in-person meeting at the level of military corps commanders on 6th of June on the Chinese side of the border. So these military and diplomatic engagements have helped to some extent in resolving the standoff situation at few points on LAC, and a disengagement process have also started at some points, while talks are on to resolve the standoff at other remaining points so as to ensure peace and tranquility in the border areas. So I'll stop here and let's go back to Shubhrashta for our next section in the Talks.
Thank you, Siddharth. That was indeed a very interesting update section, and I'm sure the viewers must have gotten enriched with interesting trivia around the border concern. This takes us to our next segment, which is the tete-a-tete segment. Today it will be taken up with Sudarshan, who has had long-standing interest in China and has followed the country for a while now. Over to you, Sudarshan.
Viewers, welcome to this edition of White Talks Tete-a-Tete. We are going to focus on the India-China border issues. We have two eminent personalities who have tracked this issue extensively joining us. First, I'd like to introduce them. Colonel S. Dini, former commanding officer of an infantry unit in Pangangso Lake. Next, we have Mr. Nitin Gokhale, Editor-in-Chief of Strat News Global, as well as BharatShakti.in. We'll first begin with Colonel S. Dini. Sir, if you could tell or rather explain to our viewers, you have also illustrated through your maps, as to what exactly is the Ladakh standoff.
Thank you, Sudarshan-ji. The Ladakh standoff now actually has been discussed so much in detail that now we are actually seeing the last phase of the standoff. The Ladakh standoff basically started somewhere in the May first week, wherein there was an altercation in the area of Pangangso, and subsequently we saw reports came out that they were built up in 4 different places. That is on the north bank of Pangangso, and then further north in the areas of Hot Spring, Gogra, and PP 1415, and in the area of Galwan. So this is the areas where after a brief violence, a physical violence in the area of Pangangso, the troops build-up was seen. Now, after which this was unusual. The quantum of troops this time was unusual, and both sides mobilized their respective troops. And on the north side, that is where I mentioned on the Galwan, the other area, they did not cross the LAC. They were deployed on their sides of the LAC itself. They took up position, but that was unusual. That was not the normal state. And then you had this, the placing of tents between Finger 4 and Finger 8 area in the North Pangangso area, the north bank of Pangangso. And basically, the Chinese had occupied that space just to show their protest or wanting to convey a point. After which the negotiation started at various levels, starting from the battalion commanders till the brigade commander, then the major general rank. And till date, it is only up to the major general rank. The talks were held, but this time an unusual step took place, and the military level talks were raised, and at the lieutenant general rank from India and a counterpart of his from China, and the talks were held a few days back. And after the talks, yesterday we heard the news that there has been a de-escalation, and both parties now have started, taking positions further towards their own locations, and they have started moving out from the positions which they had occupied near the LAC. In the area of Finger 4 and Finger 8, the Pangangso, things are still the details are yet to come. But this is the general state as what happened there.
Thank you, Colonel Dini. I'll come to you next, Mr. Nitin. A pertinent question in the minds of youngsters, especially in India, is why? Why do you think this standoff has happened in such a situation, especially in between a pandemic? Is there a compulsion in the Chinese leadership to deflect attention? And how different is this standoff to the earlier standoffs?
Well, very good question, Sudarshan, and thank you for having me on this program for the youth. 3 points actually emerge in this episode of the Ladakh standoff. One, of course, is that it's a mix of local, tactical and strategic issues which have combined to make this episode a little different from the earlier standoffs or face-offs that have happened along the India-China border. One, of course, is that the Chinese leadership wants to assert itself in various ways, show to the world that despite the pandemic, despite all the negative sentiments across the world against China, for what I have called it Wuhan virus or the Chinese virus. They want to show that they're as strong and they can still create problems for countries which are questioning their lapses and their mistakes during the pandemic that began in Wuhan. That's point number one. Point number two, locally, and that has been reflected from East China Sea, which is near Japan, to almost Bhutan, coming across from Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, and then coming to the Indian border, also the tri-junction of Bhutan. So they have started asserting themselves, showing their presence in much larger numbers in these areas, just to show that they're as strong or maybe militarily much more stronger than before despite the pandemic. That's point number one. Number two, tactically, and Colonel Denny will be able to tell us a little more, but yesterday I heard this, that at Pangang Tso, north bank of Pangang Tso, Indian forces had discovered, or they knew it earlier, but they went across to Finger 7, across the mountainous route, surprising the Chinese in late October last year, and then the winter set in. So I think the Chinese took precautionary and preventive measure to come and sit in Finger 4 and Finger 8 area, so that they didn't want India to repeat that kind of maneuver, mountain maneuver that they did. But that's only a small reason for it. The unusual build-up that Colonel Denny spoke about in their own side of the LAC in Galwan Valley at Hot Springs and others was also part of that signaling, the political signaling to India, that you better not ally or become a member of a grouping which is emerging, Quad plus 3, that is New Zealand, South Korea, Vietnam, and D10 that is being spoken about. India is being invited to G7 by President Trump, and therefore they wanted to send a political signal by coming to areas like Galwan, where they have not come from after 1962. Point number two. Point number three, they are also, over the last 3-4 years, testing India's response, military response in these areas, and the speed with which India builds up counter forces. You take Depsang in 2013, Chumur in 2014, Doklam in 2017, and now this in 2020, where India has matched or even bettered Chinese, I would say, deployment and armor deployment that has happened on the Chinese side, which I think they are testing. Having got that answer, now they have agreed to the de-escalation that one has spoken about. But that's the main basic mix of local, tactical, strategic reasons why they have done this.
Thank you, Mr. Nitin. Just as a follow-up, how would you assess the existing mechanisms that enable bilateral relations between India and China? We have had a couple of informal summits between the heads of the countries. We have certain border issues, mechanisms in place. We have the special representatives meeting. How would you put in context and assess these existing mechanisms? Is there a need to revisit this?
No, I don't think we need to revisit that. We have enough mechanisms at various levels, at the military level, at the diplomatic level, as well as at the political level. And I think the strategic communication that was agreed to at Wuhan and then finally at Mamlapuram in the second informal summit is working, because otherwise Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval wouldn't pick up the phone and speak to Yang Jiechi.
Yes.
I have not been able to figure out why Yang Jiechi. Maybe they had agreed upon that in the summit, but he is a Politburo member. So that strategic communication channel is open. So I think that they're fine. It's just that sometimes matters get out of hand. But as we have seen now, the thaw has set in. It's going to sort of go phase-wise, where some de-escalation will take place at uncontroversial, non-controversial points like Gogra, Hot Springs, Galwan. But Finger 4 and 8 will require another round of Lieutenant General level talks, and we will see what happens. But I think the mechanisms are fine and robust. It's just that we need to implement them rigorously.
I'm going to come back to you on the future roadmap on this issue that you broke yesterday. But before that, Colonel Denny, Mr. Nitin pointed out partly, do you think India upping its infrastructure capabilities, especially in the border areas has got the Chinese worried? That is why this response?
Yes, definitely. India's building up of this infrastructure has a role to play in the current conflict also. Reason is that in the past we have seen that there is a substantial increase in the infrastructure all along the line of actual control. So where there was nothing earlier, there was no road, there was no infrastructure for the troops to be to stay there. Now you find that increasingly these places are being occupied by the Indian troops. There's road going up till there. There's troops there. So what happens is that once you are in an area where you are not there, naturally the patrolling will increase. And once your patrolling starts increasing, the contact between the Chinese also will increase. And once the contact increases, the chances of such flare-ups also increase, especially in the area where there is a dispute. In the case of Finger 4 and Finger 8, and these are areas which are disputed. Of course, in the area of Galwan and all, the LAC is not under dispute, but we are constructing a road, a feeder road from the DSQBO road, which runs from north to south, a road from west to east, that is towards the LAC. We are building a road. So this, of course, the Chinese will be sensitive to it, and they will not like those kind of things happening, which can fasten India's reaction. So therefore, definitely, infrastructure coming up is, in my view, will only increase the number of chances for further such like conflicts to trigger.
Right. And my next question to you, Colonel Denny, is post 1962. Yes, 1962 was a lesson indeed. How do you assess the ability of the Indian Army to deal with such standoffs in the border areas with China?
So there's been a substantial, change from 1962. And just to put, let's start off from the quantum of troops. When the 62 war started, or just before that, there was hardly a company strength, which is about 100 odd people manning the entire Eastern Ladakh. Today you have a whole division size strength, which is almost 10 to 12 times more than what it used to be. We have the mechanized armor, the tanks there today. The artillery, the regiments are there. So as far as the military capability wise, 1962 and 2020 is absolutely different. There's just no question on that. Now, further taking it further, the now coming to the infrastructure. That is where the roads and all, we were little, we were not up to the mark because of various reasons. There was a policy of not connecting up to the LAC because it was perceived that the Chinese will use it. So such kind of things were there. But now that has also undergone a change. You have helipads coming up, you have roads coming up, you have living habitats coming up. So that also has seen a quantum jump. So 2020, and one of the reasons why this de-escalation has happened is because Chinese respect strength. They saw the strength of the Indian Army. They saw the resolve of the Indian Army. And that is why that the de-escalation is possible. And as I was mentioning earlier, the conflict also happens because there is parity. If there was no parity, then the conflict would not have happened. So between 62 and 2020, there's a whole lot of change which has happened. And India is not the same of 1962.
Thank you, Colonel Denny. Mr. Nitin, before I come to your future roadmap, while inaugurating the One Belt, One Road initiative, Chinese President alluded to something what he called as new type of international relations. Of course, he didn't define the specifics of it. Do you assess such picking up of fights with countries as putting into context that new type of international relations?
Oh, indeed, the Chinese desire, Chinese dream is sort of based on two principles. One is that complete subjugation of smaller nations earlier through military might in the medieval times, now through economic might and economic dependencies. That's why the One Belt, One Road project was unveiled. That's the Chinese, that is Xi Jinping's personal signature project, really. And he unleashed it or inaugurated it to do what I call economic colonialism. It is not an economic development program. It is a political program designed to subjugate smaller nations through debt diplomacy or getting them to be indebted to China so much that they will do whatever China wants. So that's one kind of relationship that Xi Jinping and China wants. But India was one of the few big nations to oppose categorically the One Belt, One Road initiative and the summit that took place in 2017. And since then, if you've seen the belligerence on the Indian border against India from China has increased. So we are aware of that, and India is also aware. But one issue that India has, or one policy that India has adopted, is to retain its strategic autonomy by not being part of formal alliance partner of the United States or of Japan or Australia, simply because it is only India that has a undemarcated and contested border, physical border with China. All other nations are distant. They can afford to keep talking about what they will do against China, although they are also dependent on China economically. So therefore, I think these are the new international relations that have emerged, and India has to do its own fighting, whether militarily or economically.
And finally, Mr. Nitin, you broke the news yesterday, first of the de-escalation. For our viewers, if you can briefly encapsulate that again. You marked two important dates. One is May 8th and one is June 6th, of course. Can you briefly encapsulate that for our viewers again, please?
Sure. Very quickly, I think the standoffs began, as we have mentioned, on May 5th, 6th. So immediately within 2-3 days, when all this was noticed, that they were doing it at multiple locations and the numbers were little more than earlier, Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval picked up the phone and spoke to Yang Jiechi, who is a Politburo member, although not a special representative on boundary talks. I'm guessing that he is the strategic communication channel that has been agreed upon, like Indian National Security Advisor is on the Indian side. And they agreed to provide strategic guidance to their militaries to pull it on the border. And therefore, when at finger 4 and finger 8, between finger 4 and finger 8, India started noticing the build-up, India kept quiet because India had been given guidance that you will not ratchet up the tension or you will not build up there. But the Chinese clearly had not got that message, or they didn't listen to that message. We don't know what happened there. So from May 17 onwards, the build-up really went up on the Chinese side. So India also matched that build-up, as Colonel Dini has already pointed out. And that happened. So finally we come to June 6, when both sides had the 3-star level discussions in Chushul on the Chinese side, the Moldo side, and where they came up with a roadmap of first talking about 4 particular locations where the standoff has happened, including Patrol Point 14, 15, 17A, where that will be done at the level of brigadiers and major generals. Each of those locations, discussions will take place. 4th location is the finger 4, finger 8 area, where perhaps another round of 3-star level officers will be required. And the final phase will be that India wants China to start de-inducting from their own areas, but the build-up that has happened to go back to the peace locations from where they had come and had amassed themselves close to the line of actual control in the Galwan Valley, in the finger area, all that. So that is the roadmap that is there. It will take at least the first 10 days, it will happen for these smaller locations, or the less controversial, less contested locations like Galwan, Hot Spring, Bogra and BP 14. And then finally one more round, maybe in 10 days time, on the finger 4, finger 8 area, where again India wants them to go back to the pre-May 8, when the meeting or the discussion between Ajit Doval and Yang Jiechi took place, to the pre-May 8 deployment, when there was no substantial numbers of the Chinese. That's the roadmap. Finally, how it will pan out, what will happen, we'll have to wait and watch. But that's the information I got on Tuesday, and that's the information I shared with everyone around 4:30 in the evening on Tuesday.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nitin. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of Tete-a-Tete as part of White Talks. Viewers, we have given you a brief encapsulation of why, what, a bit into China's thinking, how India has responded, and what the future holds. I hope you took back lessons from this. Please do follow these eminent personalities on social media. They are consistently writing, talking, and speaking about it. And I hope we'll come to you next episode with something topical as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sudarshan, for that amazing and enriching conversation. I'm sure all of us must have gained a lot by looking at this issue in a historical context and recontextualizing the Indo-China issue around the recent developments. This takes us to our next segment, which is the review segment. Over to you, Soumya.
Hello everyone. Just when we thought we have enough on our plate with the coronavirus, locust attack and the two cyclones, the Chinese aggression in the Union Territory of Ladakh took over the discussions in full swing. The relationship between India and China may have been older than history, but they've dramatically altered in the contemporary times. Today, I have prepared an assortment of things to share with you all. A movie, an article and a podcast. All of these have encapsulated almost all the changes that define the present relationship between India and China. Now, right after the Indo-China War of 1962, Chetan Anand directed movie called Hakikat was released in 1964. This movie was an account of the 1962 war and was made with the help of the government. This was the first Bollywood movie to be shot in Ladakh, and it even won the National Film Award for the second best feature film. Balraj Sahni and Dharmendra were seen playing the lead characters. Not only did this movie succeed in presenting a small account of the war, it became famous for its music too. The song Ab Tumhare Hawale Watan Sathiyon continues to reverberate the Indian patriotism till date. Coming to the article. Now, a lot has been written on the India-China relationship, and more so in the recent times. The article I want to share was published on the 28th of May this year in Asia Times. It is titled India-China Go Toe-to-Toe in New Cold War. It is authored by Bertil Lintner, a Swedish journalist and author who's been covering Asia for nearly 4 decades. In this article, he has simplified the complex web of factors which determine the contemporary relations between India and China and has given a brief account of major events in the recent past relevant to the current build-up. Lastly, the podcast. India Foundation recently organized the 65th India Foundation Dialogue on the India-China border issues, where 4 experts discuss the security situation in Ladakh, and this podcast is available on the India Foundation website and Spotify. The 4 experts included former ambassadors and military personnel with on-ground experience of the region and China. The discussions have covered the minute intricacies of the situation in Ladakh and its implications and ramifications for not just India but the region at large. I can definitely assure you that this podcast is one of the most comprehensive and updated source on the topic as of now. While the movie sets the premise of the 1962 war, the article and the podcast explore the contemporary events and discuss the strategic costs involved. In times when the social media brigade and the WhatsApp universities are busy debating facts, I hope these 3 sources bring you some clarity and cater to your appetite for information and entertainment. Thank you.
Thank you, Soumya, for that informative and amazing introduction to a very well done movie. As part of the shout out section today, we'll have a very interesting initiative rolled out in front of you, and we'll introduce the brilliant mind behind it. This initiative has really responded to Prime Minister Modi's clarion call for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Before we bring you to the lady who was behind this amazing initiative, let's check out interesting guest with us, somebody who has been a serial entrepreneur. She is the managing director of the Acidus Group, Somadatta Singh. Welcome, Somadatta.
Thank you, Shubrasta. Namaste to everybody, and it's an absolute honor to be on your show.
We all know the kind of work Somadatta has done, and I think the video that we shared with you right now is self-explanatory. She's not just a woman of grit and substance, she's also somebody who does not want to take any crisis and let it go without creating opportunities out of that for millions of youngsters out there. So you've done a fantastic job of providing livelihoods to people in such circumstances. Thank you for doing the work that you have been doing, and a huge shout out to you and to entrepreneurs like you.
Thank you so much, Shubrasta. I think it's a mindset that sometimes either you can be one where you can look at a circumstance and say, okay, why am I in a situation like this? Or figure out ways to make monetize it, right? And that's what I think we're looking at. And to us, it's not just about the monetization. It's about allowing India to become one of the most sought after manufacturing hubs for near future requirements for world over, right? So how can we displace China and make India the go-to manufacturing capital for the world? I think that's my focus. That's what I'm working on. And this COVID venture is a way to showcase to the world our quality, our capability, and the kind of great work that India can actually do.
All the best to you, Shom. Also, I think it's a great initiative that has really taken on the clarion call of the Prime Minister to become an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Abrasta. Thank you. You have a great one.
That's all that we have for Y Talks 9. I hope you enjoyed the show. I also hope that you keep writing to us, keep sending your suggestions. It really helps us grow and also makes us understand what it is that you would want us to bring to the table. Till we meet next, good luck to you. Stay home as far as possible. Stay safe. Subscribe to The Churn. Spread the word in your network. Thank you.